Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. Again, if you say, well, why is he wearing the same suit and tie? Well, it's just because I have decided to do 6 hours of television taping, 3 hours of television taping, 6 episodes. So you got to go to my website, toldtwitter.net, Twitter, toldtwitter, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, to interact with all the different social media, the fun things I do. I'm going to tweet out after this 3 hours. Wow. Just to kind of tell you, because again, people that are listening to the radio program, because they get to get this simulcast, it's a fantastic thing. But for my Pittsburgh audience, this is a team that we have learned to love to hate because the Pirates are winning now. So I'm excited to welcome the program, and I love partnering again with Triumph Books. Author of If These Walls Could Talk, St. Louis Cardinals, stories from the St. Louis Cardinals dugout and locker room, Stan McNeal. Stan, thanks for calling. And I guess I'm not going to disappoint our Pirate fans out there, but they got to learn what it makes to be a successful franchise like the St. Louis Cardinals for sure. You guys are really winners in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, and I think the Pirates have been paying attention or have been going about it their own way here lately, but it looks like their window for success is wide open and has no sign of closing, really.
It definitely has no sign of closing because I think finally baseball's figured out that, all high-paid salaries, that if you find people that are motivated and find them at their peak of their career at the time when they're really generating, that you can win with, building your own system, not buying players. And St. Louis has really used a lot of times the homegrown players for success, haven't they?
Yeah, and I think, at least in the case of the Cardinals, and I get the same sense with the Pirates, while talent still is far and away number one, the Cardinals also, they really consider makeup, character, whatever you want to call it. They have a team of guys that come in and they all seem to be very good citizens, all very hard workers, all very dedicated to their craft. And it just success begets success. And I think in the same way, this chemistry kind of just trickles down and filters on from year to year. And so not only do you have good baseball players, you have very good teammates. And I think whenever you're in a season that is 6 months with 162 games and very few days off, that's very important to have that kind of chemistry.
Do you think the family atmosphere of the Cardinals, it's just how the franchise has been? What do you think has led that opportunity? You don't hear lots of horrible stories about the Cardinals, like some baseball teams in times, for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt that tradition plays a part in it, and I think in recent years there's no doubt that the team is just really kind of focused on bringing in good guys, if you will. And I think it also starts at the top, like a lot of things. In the case of the Cardinals, you look at their best players, Adam Wainwright, Yadier Molina, and Matt Carpenter, and these are kind of their hardest workers, back to the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. When your best player is your hardest worker, it's hard for the other guys to slack off.
Definitely, and I'm sure you just mentioned 3 players. The Pirates fans are like, their ears are burning right now to hear about these guys for sure. But you're right, the Cardinals are not people that we're seeing in the news about, over social media wise, or just really controversial kind of players. And I think it goes to the skipper of the team, whoever has been the manager of some of these successful Cardinal teams.
Yeah, Mike Matheny was a guy who had absolutely no managerial experience beyond coaching his 4 boys in youth league when he took over for Tony La Russa after the 2011 season. And the Cardinals front office and brain trust made it clear that, okay, we know he has no experience, but we value his leadership qualities so much that we can kind of develop him as a manager, but his leadership qualities were something they saw that really couldn't be developed and were already established. And, you look now for, 3, this is his 4th season, And it was, a great call on the part of their brain trust, because he's been exactly what they thought he would be.
Definitely, he's amazing in so many ways, and I think that working under Tony La Russa helped him a lot. I'm sure he was a great student of the game, learning how amazing of a manager Tony La Russa was.
Well, he was Matheny mainly caught. He caught for, I think it was 4 years during La Russa's reign in the early 2000s here in St. Louis, and at one point towards the end of that, Tony La Russa said, "This is a guy who definitely will be a manager someday." I mean, he saw those qualities in Mike, and Mike absolutely learned a lot from Tony La Russa. But Mike will tell you that he learns from everybody. Red Shanebees is 92 years old and is still around this club pretty much every day when it's home. And Mike talks to Red regularly, and he says that's more than just a courtesy conversation. He learns stuff from Red, and you get this sense even from the Cardinals coaches that it's that kind of relationship. Mike kind of wants the input from the other coaches. That he welcomes that, and they all kind of just learn together. It may sound like a cliche, but in many ways it seems like one big happy family.
And I think that's important. And I think that when you have successful teams win championships or come close to winning championships, you look at the We Are Family, Pittsburgh Pirates. You look at the Reds at the time with Ken Griffey Sr. and that group. You see these teams that they got along together. You look at the amazing Mets of 1986, they kind of got along, but they were a cast of characters that fell apart right after that season. They weren't a team that could continue to win it. In this generation of baseball, to keep seeing the Cardinals winning when they lose some of their top players to major other teams for big contracts, even though they have a better payroll, they can spend a little more money than the Pirates, a lot more, really. But it's very amazing. And your book is not just highlighting the Cardinals. Now you're looking back years from the whole St. Louis Cardinals history, right? This book.
We take the book mainly focuses on what I consider the best era, or arguably the best era in the Cardinals' history. I mean, they've gone to the National League Championship 4 straight years now, won the World Series in that time, and to me that's kind of the most recent, or at least the golden era. So the book focuses on that, but we certainly, I certainly have stories in there about Stan Musial, the greatest Cardinal ever. When he passed away, this town, it was like royalty had passed, and the Cardinals had a lot to do with, how he was kind of seen, how he was buried, really. It was kind of a week-long event here, and it just spoke to not only how the Cardinals treat, someone like Stan Musial, but also the respect and the interest that St. Louis, the city, had in Stan, who was, a guy who stayed here from the time he joined the team in the 1940s, and was a guy that used to carry autographed baseballs and baseball cards in his trunk, and would go home. If he would stop somewhere and he saw a bunch of kids or whatever, or someone came up to him, he would just reach into his trunk and give them an autograph. And that, in a way, has come to kind of embody what many folks outside of St. Louis might derive, but is the so-called Cardinal way.
Now, so tell me, when you were asked to write this book, Stan, what is your background with the Cardinals? Tell us specifically, have you covered them, or kind of give us that background of you? Because we have 2 segments, so it's a nice time to talk about, and we can talk about your favorite memories of the Cardinals and things like that. But you focused and you're highlighted mostly the years that really they've been glorious. But tell us your background with the Cardinals.
Yeah, well, my background is not that extensive as compared to a lot of people. I moved to St. Louis in 2000 when I took a job with the Sporting News to be their managing editor for baseball coverage. Okay. So at that time, I started hanging around the Cardinals quite a bit, and that job eventually evolved into kind of their national baseball writer, which, being based in St. Louis, put me at Busch Stadium, a lot of the baseball season. And then in 2013, I was laid off by the Sporting News and started working for Fox Sports Midwest, the network that televises Cardinal games, mainly writing for their website. So in 2013 and 2014, I was at most of their games, really got to know the players on the team now, as well as the players who, kind of come back. And then just recently, I started a job as a staff writer for the Cardinals publication. Now I'm an actual employee of the St. Louis Cardinals.
How about that?
For someone who was named after Stan Musial and has the bat to prove it, it seems like, well, maybe this is where I was meant to be, And when I say that I have a bat, I'll just tell you the quick story, which is in the book. But after we moved here in 2000, my wife at the time was having lunch with her boss, who knew Stan Musial.
Oh, wow.
He introduced my wife then to Stan, and she says, "Hey, my husband's named after you." And Stan goes, "Really? Well, anybody who's named after me gets a bat." And she said, "Okay, sure." But he, had someone take down her address, and
How about that?
2 weeks later, sure enough, here's a beautiful signed autographed bat from Stan Musial that shows up in the FedEx truck, and to this day, I've got it framed in my office at home.
How about that? And tremendous story, and I think I want to jump into specifically enough what makes the Cardinals so successful in the next segment. Looking at the minor leagues and how their minor league system builds such great players. One of the directors in the minor leagues that played for the Chicago Cubs I've interviewed, and it'll come to me in a second. I tell you, I interview so many people, Stan, and you'll probably mention the person that he played for the Cubs for years, and he was, and then he ended up going to the Cardinals, and he's involved in the minor league system, the whole running the entire minor league system, and he talks about how important that process is, and it's quite interesting to see how you build a team. And I think that after people saw how can we compete with the Yankees, how can we compete with teams that payrolls that are so enormous, ginormous, like the Dodgers, it's through your minor leagues. It looks at the Oakland Athletics and their success at one point in time, and the Minnesota Twins. When did the Cardinals finally see, with the way baseball changed, how they have to build and develop their own players? And so when we get back, you're going to definitely let us know more about that. You're watching the Neil Haley Show, and we get back, more with Stan McNeal, learning more about how the Cardinals are successful. And I hope the Pirates are listening locally right now, because I want to see a World Series ring in my future with the Pirates and see them win. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, my name's Jim Corns, and this is John Bauer, and we're paramedics with Tri-Community South EMS.
This year, EMS Week is May 17th through May 23rd. Tri-Community South EMS would like to use this week to start our campaign on distracted driving.
Distracted driving has been called an epidemic. Unfortunately, many of us drive distracted. So what is distracted driving?
It is driving while engaged in any activity that could divert a person's attention away from the prime task of driving.
Texting, making phone calls, putting on makeup, reaching for objects, changing the CD or radio channel is part of an endless list that put us at risk. The following statistics should make each of us think about making changes in the way we drive or ride in a car. In 2012, over 3,000 people were killed and 421,000 were injured as a result of distracted driving.
In 2011, it was estimated that a typical daylight moment, at least 660,000 cars were being driven by drivers using handheld cell phones.
40% of teenagers have been in a car with a person using a cell phone while driving in a way that put others in danger. Driving while using a cell phone reduces the amount of brain activity devoted to driving by 37%.
Change the way you drive. Speak up for your safety.
Drive without texting or talking on your cell phone. Make calls or texts prior to driving. Pull over to a safe location to text or check emails. Stop texting or talking on cell phones to others that are driving. It all starts with you.
In honor of EMS Week, Tri-Community South would like to thank and recognize our staff for the work they do in keeping our community safe. For more information on Tri-Community South EMS, our CPR classes, or our Speakers Bureau, visit tcsems.org.
back to the Neil Haley Show, and we're the author from Triumph Books, If These Walls Could Talk, St. Louis Cardinals, Stan McNeal. Stan, amazing story how you ended up in St. Louis. I find that fascinating. And were you covering sports for another organization before the Sporting News till you got to St. Louis?
Actually, I was a sports editor at the San Diego Union Tribune, the newspaper in San Diego. I'd been there for about 15 years, so definitely close to sports pretty much my entire life. But as a sports editor, you're not just focusing solely on baseball, but on everything. But
right.
When I moved to the Sporting News, then baseball became, pretty much the full-time gig at that point.
So you were covering the Chargers, you were covering, I don't know how much I'm dating back, I don't know if it was the Clippers as well, but you were covering the Chargers and you were covering the Padres in San Diego, and beautiful city San Diego is. Was your wife happy she was going to St. Louis after she's been so many years in San Diego? I'm telling you, I visited San Diego for like just a weekend. La Jolla, where I was at a training for Darren Hardy, and I'm telling you, San Diego is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Truly, it is.
I've been here for 15 years, and I still miss San Diego. You're absolutely right. It's not only a beautiful place for a big city, it is also a very easy place to live. It was the price of real estate is I would not say easy to deal with, but just getting around the city. I mean, you can go from the coast to the mountains in like an hour's drive. I mean, it's absolutely a beautiful city, and it's also a very kind of out. There's a lot of focus on outdoors. There's a lot of great Olympic type sports athletes who based in San Diego, who the paper, at least when I was there, covered quite well. So, we did a lot with Olympic sports as well as with the Padres and the Chargers.
Awesome, because I mean, thinking about just the amazement of San Diego, and I'm sure the Chargers moving to LA would be sad. Really, it's just a tremendous franchise, the Chargers. And stories, thinking of Dan Fouts and all those different things. I'm surprised you've not written a book on the Chargers yet. I'm sure it will come down the line. If I'm wrong, I mean, I don't know for sure how many books you've authored, Stan, but that's one that definitely you would have a lot of experience from covering the Chargers. Let's go back to the Cardinals, and talk about specifically. I brought up the whole thing about the minor league system with the Cardinals and how that really has built the success of a lot of homegrown players. Would you agree with my statement?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's who they draft and also how these players are developed. I mean, you look at, I think, kind of the pinnacle of their draft success, at least right now, you look at the 2009 draft, and they had, at one point, 5 or 6 players on their team last year from that draft. I mean, and not just any players, but some of their key players. And that's just unheard of, because there have been drafts where there's not 5 or 6 players in the entire major leagues, who came out of a draft. But no, they got just quickly Shelby Miller and Joe Kelly were, I think, the first 2 picks in that draft. And they came here, and both have been traded in the past season, but their closer, Trevor Rosenthal, their first baseman, Matt Adams, and then their third baseman, Matt Carpenter, all came out of the 2009 draft. Yeah, so that I think right there speaks to how important the draft can be and the attention that the Cardinals have put on it. They really kind of refocused on the draft, or started really focusing again on the draft around 2006, 2007, Bill DeWitt was just, the owner was just kind of saying, hey, we cannot keep up with the other teams just based on free agent signings. We have to put more on the draft. They kind of went, at that time, they went more to an analytical approach, the sabermetric approach, and this is a team that kind of blends the old school with the sabermetric as well as anyone. Yeah. But that at that time, they kind of that's when they kind of turned their attention to that, and 2009, they kind of hit the jackpot with it.
And it's helped that team, and because again, they don't have to give the big contracts yet in a couple of years. but they keep developing great players. Why do you think that is? And I remember now who I interviewed was Derek May. And Derek May, former Chicago Cub that got all his rings from the Cardinals. And he's involved in the minor league system. I think he heads the minor leagues system in so many ways as a coach. The process of how they made good draft picks, do you think it's luck or do you think it's the system that St. Louis has created?
Well, I think there's definitely some luck involved. When you look at Kevin Seagrass, the left-handed reliever they have, he was a 41st round draft pick. So to think that he's going to come up and, he came up in 2013 and gave up 2 runs in like 39 or 40 innings. I mean, no one had any idea he was going to be that good, or he wouldn't have lasted to the 41st round. So there's definitely an element of luck involved. But the one thing the Cardinals do in developing their players is that the message is the same from the time they're drafted through every step of the system. It sounds simple, and I think other teams try to do this, but the Cardinals are able to do it. And I think one way that I've seen they're able to do it is that they'll have their minor league coaches all with, kind of with the major league teams for a couple of weeks in spring training. And I think from that, the minor league coaches can kind of see how things are done, how players are taught, just the drills they go through. And so that kind of then spills over to the season. And that will also bring up a minor league coach at times during the season just to kind of make a road trip with the team or to kind of hang around the team. It might be kind of a reward for a coach who's done well. It might be something they want to see if this particular coach is ready for a promotion, or maybe they think that he's not cut out to be with the club, not a good fit with the club. But I think to me that is something that definitely kind of would speak to the success they've had with developing players.
And the city of St. Louis, you have the St. Louis Rams, but this is a Cardinals town, isn't it?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. The way I usually explain that to people is they'll have, the Brewers were here during the first homestand. You're talking about a mid-April game when school is still in, the weather's not great, and there's 40,000 people coming through Busch Stadium. That just doesn't happen very many places, especially in a city that's not, this is not New York or L.A.
Right.
I mean, it's not that kind of, there's not that many people to draw from. But no, the Cardinals have had at least 40,000 for every home game going back to 2013. So, they're also a team that bases a lot of their revenue on ticket sales. So it kind of goes hand in hand. The team is good, and the people keep buying tickets, so the team can kind of put that money back into the team.
That's so important. And when you were asked to write this book, how cool was it, especially now promoting it and having the opportunity? Again, it's going to be available in paperback May 1st. I just spotted this on the situation. How did this come to being in a way where you're asked to write this book, now going and promoting it and getting to talk to so many tremendous St. Louis Cardinal fans? It must be fun reminiscing.
Yeah, this was my first book, and Triumph called me. I think someone in the area had given them my name, and they called me and asked if I was interested. And since I'd been close to the team for a while, following the team closely for a while, I said, sure, I'll give it a shot. And worked on it through all of last season. Was able to talk to not only the players on that team, but often, as do most teams, the Cardinals will have alumni in for homestands, for promotions, or whatever. So I was able to have a lot of great conversations with former Cardinals as well as present Cardinals.
And getting to interview them in ways and see the different things, and now being with the St. Louis Cardinals organization. And I guess writing a book about a winner is a good thing too, right? It's easy to kind of go and say, hey, you want to get the book, check out my book when you're all over the St. Louis area because, hey, everyone loves the Cardinals.
Yeah, and as a reporter, you're really objective. I grew up a Baltimore Orioles fan, but long ago became a fan of good stories, and of fast games and that kind of thing. But while we don't root for teams, it certainly makes the job more enjoyable when you're covering a team that's winning. And anyone who tells you differently is not being honest with you, because there's no doubt that being around a team that's winning is a lot more fun than having to go into a clubhouse day after day with a team that's in last place.
Definitely, and it is a lot of fun. And you were talking about the Baltimore Orioles. I interviewed the 100 Things Orioles author a couple segments ago, so I'm sure you love when you get the chance to go to Camden Yards. What a beautiful ballpark that is.
And I'll be buying that book, I can guarantee you. I mean, like I say, I'm not so much an Orioles fan anymore, but I'm sure that there's a lot of history about the Orioles there. And
a lot of memories, Dan Conley wrote it for Triumph, and a great guy as well. I love talking to Triumph book authors because you guys really want to get out there and talk about something that's passionate. And writing your first book, you see how much this is like another child for you or something. It's just an awesome thing to be able to go and promote something like this. Wouldn't you agree? It's like once it was out, and finally get to see it and look at the pages and say my work and all the research I did finally came to pass with the book.
It's a great experience. There's no doubt about it, and it does feel like an accomplishment. I mean, even if it doesn't really sell a copy, it's like, hey, I've got that book now. I'll always have that to put on my resume or to put in my office.
I think as good of a talker and how you really are very knowledgeable of the Cardinals, I have a feeling you'll have more books for the Cardinals in your career writing for Triumph. I think this is the first of many, I'm sure. And you have to kind of pitch them and say, did you know I covered the San Diego Chargers? Especially if the Chargers leave San Diego. What a book to write one on them before that ends, the memories of the Chargers. Oh, I'm just thinking ideas, Stan. Keep you busy for sure.
Yeah, no, the Chargers, I'm like you. I really don't see the Chargers leaving San Diego. I mean, it's a team that hasn't ever won a Super Bowl, but there's still a great history of football, of the Chargers there. I mean, you're talking about in the 80s when they had Dan Fouts and those guys. I mean, that was a team that was just a joy to watch.
Don Coryell. Oh my gosh.
Groundbreaking.
Well, you got to write the next 100 Things book if I'll find out if they did write one. But all right, Stan, where's the best place we can find information on you and purchase your book? Where can we go?
The best place right now is Amazon.com. You can pre-order it. Just kind of, if you actually don't even have to go to Amazon. If you just Google "If These Walls Could Talk," St. Louis Cardinals, it will pop up there. It's going to be in Barnes and Nobles, pretty much. I hope everywhere. I know here in St. Louis it will be here. And
I'm sure it's in the front cover in Pittsburgh. I'm just kidding.
They might kind of hide it behind the Pirates book there, but no. I think the best place right now is Amazon.com, or like I say, just Google "If These Walls Could Talk," St. Louis Cardinals.
Well, a good friend of mine, Dr. Michael Robinson, is going to definitely listen to this interview because he's a huge Cardinal fan, always bugs me and tweets me out when the Cardinals are beating the Pirates. So thanks for calling, Stan, and best of luck.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. That was the Neil Haley Show. Fantastic show, toldtrue.net. And we'll talk next week with more great education and celebrity talk. Take care, everyone.